Good evening, I'm Katerina Georgieva. This is CBC Windsor News. Thanks for joining us. The fight in Dresden against a proposed dump site is not over yet. Community members continue to rally, even though they've taken a hit with the passing of a new provincial law. Dawson Chen has our top story.
Bill 5 has passed in the Ontario legislature, and equipment has been brought to this site near the small community of Dresden to begin establishing what's being called the Dresden dump. But even with work underway, opponents of the project say they're not done fighting.
And I want to tell people out there that Dresden is the canary in the coal mine. What's happening here is a canary in the coal mine. And so I'm going to go around the province and I'm going to tell them, you know what I learned from the people of Dresden? Canaries don't just sing, they roar!
We will not stand for this direct attack on the land. We call for an immediate repeal of Bill 5.
Yes. Bill 5 may have passed, but they do not have all the pieces required to establish a landfill. And for that, we have the farmers who since last year have decided they were not selling. They were going to stand firm and protect our community. You know who you are. I see you over there in the pink shirt. Angie, thank you. Mike, thank you. We are not giving up. We are not giving another square inch of land to York 1.
Just 2 kilometers from the dump site, Stefan Premdis of the group Dresden Citizens Against Reckless Environmental Disposal organized a rally to show that resistance to the site is not dead. Ontario NDP leader Marit Stiles and Lyle Gowell of the Public Service Alliance of Canada were just some of the people who took the stage. But with the passing of Bill 5, the way seems clear for the company York 1 Environmental Waste Solutions to begin establishing a disposal site within walking distance of farms, residences, and the Sydenham River. Bill 5 creates so-called special economic zones where businesses can be exempt from provincial or municipal laws and regulations, which includes requirements for permits and environmental assessments. It also specifically exempts, quote, specified activities related to the Chatham-Kent waste disposal site. Rallygoers made a point to note Premier Doug Fort's lack of response to their concerns and the absence of the area's progressive conservative MPP Stephen Pinsonneau. Dresden residents Al Kominick and Ashley Quatip admit that an outcome in their favor is unlikely, but they're still holding out hope.
I'm a conservative myself, but I am not happy at all. In fact, I just sent Mr. Ford a letter yesterday about our Mr. Pinsonneau and how unhappy I am about the whole thing. And would it make any difference? Probably not, but you know, enough people who are here, they care, and that's part of the Dresden care. We care about our community.
According to the Dresden Citizens Group and opposition leader Marit Stiles, there are still some hurdles for York 1 before the project can fully proceed. But with the public comment period expired and provincial approval given on June 28th, locals may soon have to face the reality of the Dresden dump. Dawson Chen, CBC News, Chatham-Kent.
And we did hear back from York 1 about the protest. The company says that a small crew is working on the site to do prep work, saying that everything being done is permitted under the site's existing environmental compliance approval. The company also stresses that the site will not be used for household waste, but for non-hazardous construction and demolition materials. And we now bring in Khalil Hassanali with our first look at weather on another hot day, Khalil.
Another hot day, and it's still really, really warm around southwestern Ontario, Katerina. So looking at current temperatures, we're still sitting at the 28-degree mark, so still really, really warm. A bit cooler as you're going up towards Sarnia, Goderich at 21, even Kitchener and London at 24. Having a look at the weather outlook, now by the time we get to about 9 o'clock tonight, any rain that we might have, that starts to move out as we go through the day tomorrow. It looks like it's going to be gorgeous, and we are maybe seeing some rain later on tomorrow evening, but I'll get to that in just a little bit.
Sounds good. Thanks, Khalil.
Okay.
CBC News has learned how Windsor's police chief is being disciplined for his racist remarks at work. But some in the community say it's too lenient. Jason Vio brings us this exclusive story.
The Windsor Police Services Board is requiring Police Chief Jason Belair to take equity, diversity, and inclusion training after an internal investigation found he made racist remarks. A source with direct knowledge of the discipline says Belair's training must be completed by December 31st even though the chief will be retiring in November, roughly 2 years before his 5-year contract ends. I spoke with Kamisha Siblis, director of the Black Studies Institute at the University of Windsor. She says the consequences the board handed down, quote, doesn't really amount to anything, end quote, and lacks some accountability. Siblis calls the comments the chief is said to have made dehumanizing. Now, in March of 2024, Inspector Ed Armstrong filed a complaint with the Human Rights Tribunal of Ontario. Armstrong said Belair made jokes about black people and bananas, suggested there was telepathic communication among black individuals, and asked an officer to use his black magic to ease criticism of police, among other things. In March of this year, CBC published a story that an internal police investigation substantiated those allegations against Belair, although it didn't specify what remarks Belair was found to have made. Belair has not publicly addressed his comments. A Windsor police spokesperson says they won't be commenting on this story as the human rights proceeding is ongoing. CBC News has also made repeated attempts to reach Police Board Chair and City Councillor Joanne Gignac. She has not responded. Siblis reacted to the silence by saying, if we don't acknowledge it, then it really didn't happen. She also thinks Belair should have received a demotion despite his retirement. Siblis says that's comparable to the punishment Inspector Armstrong received in early 2024 for his inappropriate comments at work. The Windsor Police Association also says Belair's punishment illustrates a two-tiered disciplinary system at Windsor Police. Kent Rice says if a lower-ranking member made racist remarks, he said they'd likely face a severe demotion.
Where did the discipline even come from? I'm like, what work did the Police Services Board put into this in order to come up with such a light and really ineffective discipline? Just knowing the significance, like the damage to the public trust, the damage to the community, the damage to his own members, that I expected that it would be a significant penalty. This falls extremely short.
Rice gave an example of one of his members responding to an emergency and not fully stopping at a red light. That officer lost 6 hours of pay. Rice said the scales of discipline just don't align. Now, this is also the third consecutive chief to leave early or amid some controversy. Pam Mizuno retired abruptly in March of 2022 in the middle of her 5-year term. She was also paid a full year's salary that year despite only working 3 months. And she was paid nearly $200,000 in 2023 after retiring. And her predecessor, Al Frederick, retired in 2019. The same year, CBC News reported a domestic 911 call to his home. Rice says the turnover in chiefs and controversy when they leave is demoralizing for Windsor Police employees. And now that the board is actively searching for a new chief, Rice says he's heard from members about wanting someone from the outside to step into that role. Jason Vio, CBC News, Windsor.
Sales of the Windsor-built Chrysler Pacifica minivan have been soaring in Canada, according to Stellantis, though other models aren't doing as well. Latest numbers from the company released this week say more than 4,300 Pacificas were sold between April and June this year. That's nearly double compared to the same stretch of time last year. Meanwhile, the Grand Caravan, which is also produced in Windsor but only available on the Canadian market, saw an 11% dip in sales compared to the second quarter of last year. Sales of the Pacifica and Voyager, the U.S. equivalent of the Caravan that's also assembled in Windsor, dropped by roughly 39% south of the border, according to data from FCA US. Overall, Canadian sales for all FCA Canada vehicles are down 10% for the second quarter of this year as compared to last, which is on par with its U.S. operations. And the fresh sales numbers come as uncertainty in the industry continues with U.S. President Trump's tariffs on foreign parts and fully assembled vehicles. The Windsor plant has already faced temporary layoffs as a result. Statistics Canada has released new data on Canadian exports on the U.S. and other countries for May. The report shows that Canada's trade deficit has narrowed after a record-breaking deficit in April. May was the third month of U.S. President Donald Trump's trade war with Canada. CBC's Scott Peterson brings us more.
May's merchandise trade deficit was $5.9 billion, and while still in negative territory, It's better than a record deficit in April that we saw of $7.6 billion. Now, overall, our exports, seen here in the red line, were up about 1% for the month, closing in at about $61 billion. But our imports in blue fell about 1.5% to $66.7 billion, and we imported more than we exported, so simply that is our deficit. Now, our exports to the U.S. continue to fall. They're down in May for a fourth month in a row, and imports of cars and light trucks down to the lowest level that we've seen in more than 2 years. And so what does this mean for Canadian exporters going forward? Well, here's Shelley Kaushik from the Bank of Montreal.
There is, again, likely to be some additional pressure on steel and aluminum producers and exporters with the doubling of those tariffs in June. There was a bit of an increase in oil prices in June as well, but a lot of that was walked back. So for the month as a whole, there was a very small increase due to the tensions in the Middle East. But I don't think that's going to be enough to help support and the value of energy exports coming out of Canada. Certainly not enough to offset all of this other broader pressure and all of these extra headwinds that Canadian exporters are facing right now.
So there is room for optimism that Canadian businesses are finding other markets. Canada shipped more gold to the UK, more crude oil to Singapore, and more aluminum and pharmaceutical products to Italy. And according to Statistics Canada, in 2024, about 76% of everything we exported went south of the border. And for the month of May, that number has dropped to about 68%. So optimism that there are markets other than the U.S. Scott Peterson, CBC News, Toronto.
And on a different note, this weekend, local jazz lovers are in for a treat. There's not one, but 2 jazz festivals happening in the city over the weekend. And our video producer, Mike Evans, spoke with the organizers to learn more.
Hi, my name is Russ Macklem, and here today to talk about the Electric Avenue International Jazz Fest being held here on Erie Street, July 4th and 5th. So I was approached back in January by the owner of Windsor Eats, Adriano Satoli. He had the idea of starting a new jazz festival here in Windsor, and we're calling it the Electric Avenue International Jazz Festival, as that's the name of this alley that Windsor Eats is on. He sort of came up with the initial idea and asked me if I could, with a modest budget, could put together a pretty good lineup of people, and I think we were more than able to do that. We're talking about jazz. That specifically in this region has always been a collaboration between Windsor and Detroit musicians, and I think Windsor musicians such as myself, a good portion of what I do and sort of my passion is playing, you know, black music or jazz music. You know, we're reliant on the Detroit scene to make a living.
There's another event on Sunday that you're playing at.
Yeah, this is sort of jazz Christmas here in Windsor, I guess.
Yeah, last year, unfortunately, we had no roads, no sidewalks. It was raining on our event last year, but still had a really, really decent turnout. So with that, with the fact that you couldn't get here unless you had a dune buggy or something, you know that with that many people showing up last year, this is going to be an amazing event. Musicians from Windsor, from Essex County, from Michigan, from Toronto, from actually all around Canada, including 2 Juno-winning artists that are going to be playing behind me over here in Mary Ebib Park. Live jazz at Barrel House, at Dominion House, and at Sandwich Brewing Company. So you'll be able to sit on a patio with live jazz and have a dinner with your friends and family, have a drink, enjoy our beautiful new neighborhood.
It is the end of an era. The former Boblo Island Amusement Park ferry dock on the mainland is being removed. This here was the view of the dock from Boblo Island a few weeks ago, and then this was the site today. The Department of Fisheries and Oceans has started the demolition work this week. Amherstburg's mayor had been asking for some time that the crumbling dock be removed. Unused for years, it had fallen into total disrepair. The DFO says that it recognizes the significance of the dock to the community, but says that its removal is necessary for the safety of the community and the environment. A live look outside there. Another hot one, something we really need to just get used to now that summer is here. So I'm hoping that you're finding ways to stay cool. And Khalil will, of course, have more weather for us later in the program. And after the break, we will have national news for you, so please stay with us. Welcome back. In national news, Ottawa is moving quickly to select and fast-track key energy and infrastructure projects after Bill C-5 became law last week. Major Canadian projects have long stalled over slow permits and other roadblocks. David Thurton explains where things go from here.
Canada is ready to build big things, something some say it hasn't done for a while.
What we can see is that there's a number of failed projects around the country.
This former top public servant has seen firsthand how Canada has struggled to get things done. From oil and gas infrastructure to transmission lines connecting provinces to clean power. Sources tell CBC News cabinet ministers are meeting through the summer to implement Mark Carney's vision. Now that Bill C-5 has passed, he's able to build on a scale and pace not seen in decades, approving projects up front, fast-tracking environmental reviews.
The real work begins now.
Cabinet will soon come up with a list of energy and infrastructure projects deemed in the national interest, a list that can't come soon enough for some.
That guy needs to be walking around every day in his vest pocket with a list of the 20 projects, pulling it out and saying what's off the rails, what's on the rails.
Another priority Indigenous consultation. Some have vocally opposed the pace Carney's moving.
Opening up and dialogue between government officials and First Nation governments need to happen. And it's a two-way street. Dialogue happens both ways, not one-way ramming something through.
This Inuit-owned corporation, though, backs Carney's plans in hopes of connecting Nunavut to the national grid and high-speed internet, a transmission project that's shovel-ready but lacking financing.
That is the one defining hurdle in the development of those major projects that are 100% Indigenous-led and owned, is the fact that access to capital is hard.
Expectations are high. Carney will get big things built while respecting Indigenous rights. On that front, Carney will host Indigenous leaders here in the nation's capital for summits in about 2 weeks. David Thurton, CBC News, Ottawa.
It was a chaotic start to the day for many air travelers across the country. Air Traffic Control Authority NAV Canada says operations are back to normal after bomb threats at multiple airports. It grounded flights in several cities as authorities carried out searches. Nicole Williams has the details.
This was the scene at Ottawa's International Airport this morning. The terminal crawling with police officers, sniffer dogs, and hundreds of passengers left waiting.
They just said it was a security issue for flights coming in or going out. That's what I heard.
That security issue, a bomb threat. NAV Canada, which oversees air traffic control, says it was made aware of bomb threats affecting facilities in Ottawa, Montreal, Edmonton, Winnipeg, Calgary, and Vancouver early Thursday morning. Staff were moved to a safe place while the agency and police did their investigations, but some passengers caught off guard.
Do I have the opportunity even to leave right now because I don't feel safe here? And that was also going through my mind of I've got my 3 kids at home and now I'm sitting in an airport that has a bomb threat.
Others unaware there was even a problem until after they got to the airport.
We get down through security, everything's fine until we look to find our gate and we see that the hallway to our gate's blocked off. So at that point we looked at the screens and it showed that our flight to Vancouver was canceled.
NAVCAN isn't sharing more details about the nature of the threat, but Winnipeg RCMP say the airport there received a call around 6 a.m. local time that a bomb was in the control tower. Police did a search but found nothing. NAVCAN says operations are back to normal, but dozens of flights across the country and as far as Chicago and Washington delayed or canceled, leaving passengers in a lurch.
I'm probably around $500 to $600 just by not making my flight today.
Some passengers stuck at the Ottawa airport for hours longer than expected. Direct flights rebooked days from now. Others not able to get any help at all.
The investigation into exactly what happened is ongoing. NAV Canada says it's working with police and Transport Canada to get to the bottom of who made these threats. And in the meantime, they're asking air passengers to continue checking their flight status before they head to the airport. Nicole Williams, CBC News, Ottawa.
Khalil Hassanali is back now for more on weather. And Khalil, we were just talking about how hot it is every day. It's a continuous thing.
Yeah.
But there's always like a slight chance of rain, especially this week going on.
Yeah, so we have actually a slight chance for the rest of the evening. By the time we get to the overnight hours, it should clear out really nicely. And then also even tomorrow evening, there's a slight chance that some rain could come down, even though we're going to have a gorgeous day tomorrow, especially through the day. Not really expecting anything to come down, but it does cloud over, but I'll have more on that in just a little bit. So maybe a quick downpour, let's say tonight. There is a slight chance. They're saying about 30%, so nothing too drastic, and that could also be the case for tomorrow. But then we have a clearing chance. So really through the day, you're not going to see much. It's going to be gorgeous, a blue sky. And as we go towards the weekend, if you're getting any gardening done, maybe do that early in the day. It is going to be hot and it's going to be humid. We haven't got the humidex values, but with temperatures north of 30, you know it's really going to ramp up. So current temperatures in and around southwestern Ontario, still at 27 degrees through Windsor, Chatham, Kent, and cooler as they're going up towards the GTA right now. So 23 in London and in Kitchener. So I mentioned that there might be some rain that comes down through the rest of the evening. We're seeing a little bit of green, that means rain. But by the time we get to 9 o'clock at night, it's moved over to the US side. And then it clears out really, really nicely. As we go through the rest of Friday, all morning long, there's not really going to be anything. As we go towards the afternoon, you see a few cells pop up. And then by the evening time, it might hit the city of Windsor, but that is still a very small chance. And then it clears out as we go through towards Saturday morning. So nothing too bad. What did we get up to today? 27 degrees. That's what we're looking at as our current temperature. A bit warmer as you're actually going through central Canada. 31 in Winnipeg, 30 in Saskatoon. In Charlottetown, PEI, we got up to 36 degrees today. Overnight tonight, dropping down to 17 degrees. Not really expecting any rain through the overnight hours. So that's going to be done through the late evening time, I should say. And then warming up to 30 as we get towards tomorrow, and then starts to cloud over a little bit more towards the afternoon and evening time. Looking at our long-range forecast, we have 30 degrees on Friday, and then I mentioned north of 30 for Saturday, Sunday. Maybe Sunday, we could see some rain pop back into the picture. Only about a 40% chance of that happening. 27 on Monday, and we do have 27 degrees and a little bit north of that going in towards Tuesday. So Sunday, Monday, maybe a little bit of rain that comes into the picture, but overall a pretty good 5-day forecast for high temperatures and a little bit of sunshine too, Katarina.
Absolutely. And when the rain comes, I'm sure the plants need it, so that's good too.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thanks, Khalil, and
right.
thanks everyone for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.